When an injustice occurs and no one is willing to right the wrong, when life and liberty are deprived and no one is by your side, when the final option is to declare truth and condemn the unconscionable, then let it be so. This is the mission of YesToHellWith.com.
Welcome back to Where Are the Heroes podcast series. I am Bo Johnson. I am the author of The End of Justice, which is a critical review of how and why America is the most incarcerated country in the world. I had every intention to interview Orlando Carter for months, but the scheduling has been difficult. We now have Orlando Carter with us. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me.
In 2009, you were convicted of multiple federal crimes based upon an allegation that you and your company had a financial liability with PNC Bank. In essence, PNC alleged that you stole $4 million. After a jury trial in a federal court in the Southern District of Ohio, you were found guilty and received a 15-year prison sentence. Obviously, your life changed forever. You lost 2 businesses with expanding opportunities. You lost your home. You lost your freedom. And you were separated from your family and a child who was less than a year old. Looking back at this regrettable event in your life, share your thoughts and feelings.
Well, it was obviously a very traumatic experience, being falsely accused of something I did not do. It took me away from my family, which is the most important thing, to me regarding anything in my life. But thankfully, we were able to keep the fight going. We're here today and, intend to continue to fight this.
In the years prior to PNC's false allegations, describe your life. What were you doing?
Well, I come from a very humble beginnings in terms of growing up on a farm, worked my way through college, paid my way, able to graduate from Duke University with an MBA in business. I had been working in corporate America for years, at which point I decided, the entrepreneur in me to go out on my own and start my own business. Prior to PNC coming in, I was running a very successful business in the fiber optics industry and had grown my business to be worth $150 million at the time. So it was traumatic, when they came in with their false allegation, primarily to cover up wrongdoing by themselves.
When PNC made these allegations, they obviously made them to the federal government. Tell us about your initial reaction when you heard about it.
Well, I was actually surprised and stunned as to why they would be making this, because they never made that allegation towards me in terms of providing me with any documentation, while they would be accusing me of a $4 million loan.
It's an event that surfaced, you heard about it, and you were in just complete amazement that this was even happening.
Yeah. Just felt like all the forces were going against me, and everything I was saying to PNC Bank as well as the federal government was falling on deaf ears that this was a false claim.
I have gone into great detail about the investigation by the FBI. Describe your thoughts and emotions as the FBI was conducting its probe.
I had grown up to believe that our government was fair and honest and willing to listen and in the best interest of its citizens. However, as I was met with FBI agent Kevin Gormley, he clearly had an agenda. It seemed like he didn't care about what I was saying. He was strictly out there to get a conviction. And today, he, nor the FBI, nor the U.S. Attorney has ever produced any authenticated, meaning real and certified bank documents from PNC Bank showing this loan. So I was just really taken back and, began to stress immediate concerns about the integrity of these people.
Were they listening?
At the time, I thought they were, but obviously he had an agenda and a motive and never went to PNC Bank to confirm what the bank was saying.
In the episodes of this podcast, I discussed 3 options the FBI and DOJ could and should have used to confirm or deny PNC's false claims in 2007. And you and I accomplished one of those options in 2017. After contacting the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is an office within the Department of the Treasury, we secured proof that there was no $4 million loan. The FBI and DOJ should have contacted the OCC at the beginning of the investigation and invalidated PNC's claims that there was a $4 million obligation. Had the agents conducted a competent and comprehensive investigation, you never would have been charged with a crime. Thus, 10 years later, while sitting in prison and knowing of this new evidence from the OCC, it must have been surreal. Share your thoughts about that.
If they had thoroughly investigated PNC's claim prior to seeking an indictment, this would have never happened. As you just stated, in 2017, after sitting in prison at that time for almost 8 years, I discovered through the Office of the Comptroller, which is the federal banking regulator for PNC Bank, that the bank had made clear that there was never a $4 million loan. So when I got that new information from the federal government, being that there's only one federal government, U.S. Treasury being this entity, I assumed that this matter would be over in the U.S. Attorney's Office within the Department of Justice could accept a finding by the Department of Treasury. However, I guess they were concerned about having to admit their wrongdoing and covering up the mistakes of a bank. They chose not to even listen to what the U.S. Treasury Department had found. So, once again, I was just astonished at the behavior of these people who call themselves public servants.
So you're in prison for some 7 to 8 years, and you have a federal agency that confirms there was no $4 million loan, and the OCC went so far as to have PNC admit that there was no $4 million loan. You must have been in prison elated, surprised, ecstatic about the opportunity that this might get you home. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it's an extremely fair statement, because essentially the federal government was contradicting itself by saying that the loan never existed. And that's what the judge had ruled being the centerpiece of my case, was this $4 million loan by PNC Bank. So by them contradicting themselves, I thought the matter was over.
It seems like the federal government is just this insurmountable beast. And once it makes a decision, it'll take a miracle for the government to reverse itself and admit a wrongdoing. It's almost as if the hubris and the arrogance of these officials, the system itself, is such that they cannot admit to doing something wrong. Is that a fair statement as well?
That's an extremely fair statement. And if you allow me, just a few weeks ago, I was watching U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland do a press conference, or whatever he does, in which he made the statement that the Department of Justice stands for the people in the sense of doing the right thing. And one of the statements he said was that they prosecute no matter who it is, depending on the facts, and they go wherever the facts lead them. And when he made that statement, I knew right then and there he was lying, because his office has been made aware of the fact that PNC Bank fabricated a loan and gave it to the Department of Justice, and he's doing nothing about it. He nor his local U.S. attorneys, no one. So when I see these officials standing up making these political statements, it's a bunch of BS. They're doing nothing but lying and trying to save face.
In my book, The End of Justice, I describe the incompetence and corruptness within the legal system. Notably, if key officials are not willing to challenge an accepted but false narrative of a criminal case, a flawed theory of prosecution, that narrative will further metastasize into something that should not be. Now, our friend Dominic Mango, who is a lawyer, has appropriately said that the government did not prosecute you based upon facts or truth, but based upon a theory of prosecution with questionable evidence to support their theory. In other words, Since no official ever secured the facts, and the government continues to deny the facts now, the truth will not be known. Unfortunately, most Americans believe that we have a legal system that is sound. Consequently, many would say that since you had defense attorneys, you had your day in court, and that the system worked. What is your response?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I had a day in court if all the information that was being presented was false and inaccurate. Regarding my defense attorneys, I certainly would say I never had my day in court because they were pushing me to plea and never investigated the matter. So technically there was no sense of an adversarial system in place at the time of my trial because essentially even my own defense attorneys were admitting that this loan existed. Essentially riding on the coattails of whatever the prosecutors were saying. So it was just a flat-out lie.
In this case, the facts were false, they were lies, and the agents and the U.S. attorney followed those lies as if they were facts. And now we have an unfair representation of what happened, and we have the conviction of an innocent man. Did the FBI, in your mind, conduct a competent investigation into PNC's claims?
Absolutely not.
Did the U.S. Attorney conduct a competent investigation into PNC's claims?
Absolutely not. And he's continuing to refuse to conduct an investigation, now having been presented with the new evidence that PNC Bank executives lied to his office during a federal investigation. And that is a crime.
Now, speaking about your defense attorneys, you just mentioned that they never challenged the false allegation that you had a financial obligation. Did they just accept the government's representation that the loan existed? Is it that simple?
Yes. Essentially, what happened with this group of attorneys, that they had no interest in defending this matter. Essentially, after my check cleared, and I paid them very handsomely, after the check cleared, they began to move to push me to a plea. To this day, not even they will call me back to go over the new evidence. And even during that time when they were pushing me to plea, they thought they were doing me a favor by saying they had worked out something with the government, that if I would just plead at anything, the government would recommend probation. And I just thought that was asinine, that they were more interested in helping the government secure a conviction rather than help me defend a matter in which I was telling them that it was all based upon a lie. So in my case, they offered me multiple pleas, which I've turned them all down. And unfortunately, my defense attorneys seem to have been less interested in defending this matter rather than getting this matter over with so they can move on to the next case.
Even for your defense attorneys, it was about time and money.
Now having experienced this system, the criminal justice system, I would say it's an embedded economy within itself. And that economy, includes the courts, it includes the defense, and it includes the people being accused. It seems that it's more about, monetary things, because more than anything, rather than justice, at least I can say that from my defense attorney's perspective.
Describe the plea agreement that you were offered ultimately, and did that include prison time or not?
On the eve of my trial, after having already told my defense attorneys I have no interest in pleading to this matter because I knew for a fact that PNC's claims were false. On the eve of the trial, it was Friday, we were in my defense attorney's office, and the U.S. attorney's office calls over and offers a plea to probation if I would plead to anything. So in other words, they wanted to make up a charge for me to plead to make the matter go away. And their recommendation to the court would have been probation and no prison time. And when I asked my defense attorneys, what does this mean, plead to anything? It appeared they'd been down this road before because they answered so quickly, is that they would just make up a charge, something similar to taxes, avoiding paying taxes, and then that's what I would plead to, and everything else would be dropped. I was more than pissed, to say the words, because I've always paid taxes. I've always done the right thing. And now here you guys are trying to create a story for me to plead to, just so that you could save face or get the outcome you wanted. There was no way in the world I was going to do that. And to this day, I continue to fight this matter.
So you've got PNC that creates a story. You've got the FBI that takes that lie and they create a story. The U.S. attorney takes that story and adds on to it. And now your defense attorneys want you to plead to an entirely separate story to make the fake story go away, and you won't get prison time.
That's exactly what was going on.
In most criminal cases, the prosecutor will add multiple major or minor criminal offenses simply to sensationalize the indictment. Their intention is to create great theater and pressure the accused into pleading guilty to lesser charges. In the podcast series that I created, I focused on the alleged crime that there was a $4 million loan and the money was stolen. Since the OCC investigation and findings proved that the FBI and DOJ never investigated the veracity of PNC's claims, all minor crimes are effectively rendered baseless, that is, until proved on their own merits. Speak to this point.
It is standard when they come after you, they throw the whole book at you. Any little thing they think they can charge you with, they want to add that to the indictment, because they believe the more counts they have against you, the better their chances at least winning on one count. We call this stacking the indictment, meaning that, whatever it takes to get a win against an individual, that's what they're after. The alleged crime in my case was that they said PNC Bank originated a loan with my company, and I did not put that loan on my financial statements. So technically, they never accused me of stealing $4 million personally. What they said is there was a financial obligation out there, and that I failed to put that on my company's financial statements. And therefore, when I presented these financial statements to any lender, I committed fraud. And in this case, they were talking about fraud with Fifth Third Bank. Never accused of anything wrong related to PNC Bank. It's just that they needed the PNC Bank allegation in order to stick me with an allegation related to Fifth Third Bank. So it's all a bunch of BS.
How many crimes did the U.S. attorney allege that you committed?
11.
And in your opinion, were the minor crimes based upon the premise of the $4 million obligation with PNC Bank?
Well, it's not my opinion. It's what the court decided when they call the $4 million obligation being the centerpiece of the case. The court ruled that, in other words, without the $4 million, there is no crime related to any of the accounts.
Conclusively, all the minor crimes are related to the centerpiece of the $4 million obligation, which did not exist. So without that $4 million obligation, it makes sense that all the other crimes would have had no merit. Whether because of cognitive dissonance or willful blindness, Americans believe the federal government is competent and the courts are fair. We just mentioned that earlier. Yet innocent people are sent to prison every day. How informed were you about the justice system before your personal experience?
I was not informed at all. I had never had any dealings with the justice system. I'm probably like every other American out there that's never dealt with it, or anyone who grew up believing that our officials are honest, they deal with people with integrity and above the law. According to the law, I was one of them. I assumed that, ultimately they would get to the truth and this matter would go away. That is not the case. Our system is deeply flawed, and frankly, there's no accountability with people in the system that have so much authority and power over people's lives that they can do what they want with it and hide behind the cloak of the prestige of the government.
Your tragedy is based upon a business relationship that your company had with PNC Bank. Your company was a vendor for PNC. Specifically, PNC wanted to provide financing to Butler County, Ohio, for the creation and operation of a wireless fiber optics ring. Please describe this relationship and project.
Technically, my company was a fiber optics manufacturer, and we assisted companies with installation of fiber optic technologies. Butler County was seeking to provide fiber optic solutions to its residents. At the time, they had installed fiber. However, the fiber was dormant, and they sought us to come in and light the fiber so that it could be provided to its residents. In order to do so, the county was responsible for paying the fees in terms of lighting that, and PNC Bank was at the table to provide the financing for the project on behalf of the county.
Describe your company's relationship with Butler County. To what extent were you dealing with them directly?
No different than any other customer to us. I don't know if we can stress that their relationship is any different than anyone else. It was just a normal customer to us.
How were you or your companies first introduced to PNC Bank?
I think there was a sales rep that was responsible for going around on behalf of the bank seeking business opportunities, and it was the sales rep that got involved with the financing of this project.
Who within your company had responsibility to coordinate with PNC and Butler County?
So we had a project manager named Karen Verbruggen and a sales person named Jim Smith. They were responsible for working on the project and coordination, the project plan, making sure we were delivering pursuant to the contract regarding lighting this fiber.
Did Smith or Verbruggen have the authority to bind your company to a financial obligation?
No.
Did James Smith have the authority to sign for Butler County or your company?
He certainly didn't have capability to sign for my company.
Did James Smith sign anything which PNC Bank perceived as a loan obligation for you or your company?
To date, I have not seen any real documents from PNC Bank regarding any loan obligation. So I cannot speak to what James Smith may have signed regarding a loan. I have not seen any certified bank documents showing any evidence of a loan.
Did James Smith sign a piece of paper that PNC and the government referred to as a loan guarantee? And I believe this was done without your knowledge.
During my trial, they showed some document that they purported to be a loan guarantee without showing any evidence of a loan. So if that's what you're referring to, that piece of document, I don't know how you tie that to a loan when even the Department of Treasury is saying a loan never existed.
Under Ohio law, an LLC or a corporation would actually have corporate resolutions that would commit the company to a loan, especially one as sizable as a $4 million loan. Is that correct to your understanding?
Yes. I was the only person in my company that could commit my company to a loan. I don't care what other documents you're referring to, whatever documents they presented during the trial. I was the only person that could obligate my company to a loan. And to this date, I have not seen one document that shows my company having an obligation of a $4 million loan. This is probably the reason PNC Bank and the federal government, now that I've spent all this time in prison, is refusing to want to meet with me or talk to me about it. Well, I assure you this matter is not going to go away until the truth comes out. We provided all the corporate financials to them, and it didn't show this loan.
If, in fact, James Smith signed something that purported to be a loan guarantee, the guarantee would have to be backed up with a financial obligation of your company. And that never existed, and that's the larger point that I'm making. Speak to that.
You can't guarantee something that never existed. People sign loan guarantees all the time, right? But even in this case, there would have had to be an underlying loan for there to be a guarantee. even if Smith signed something, he did not have authority to sign on behalf of my company. And I'm still arguing, that whatever document that PNC Bank created to purport this is fake and false. It has no merit. I mean, just think of this. If you have a car loan with PNC Bank and you miss your car payment, they are coming to repossess the car. Same thing with a mortgage. If you miss your mortgage payment with the PNC Bank, they're going to foreclose on your home. I've been accused of having not just one loan, but two loans with PNC Bank, one at $4 million, which is what they prosecuted me over, and the second one at $8.8 million, which I found out they were accusing me of while I was sitting in prison. Well, there's $12.8 million there, and to date, PNC Bank has never, ever filed a legal action against me to recoup not even a single dime of that money. It's a lie. It's false. And no matter how they want to look at it or who signed what, it is a false claim. And what they want to do is similar, is just with all the distractions, talk about people like Smith, but that's irrelevant. The question is, was there a loan? Yes or no? And the answer is no. If it's yes, produce the documents. Then I was rightfully convicted for failing to put a loan on a financial statement. Otherwise, it's time for the truth to come out.
Orlando, that's very well said, and I like your comparison or analogy with the car loan. Now, obviously, if in fact PNC thought that you had a loan and you were not paying that loan, their recourse immediately would have been to contact you, and then without satisfaction, they would have filed a civil action in court. Isn't that standard?
Yes. Banks don't, if you owe a bank and you don't pay it, it doesn't run to the federal government and say you committed a crime. It takes action to recoup its money. Now, during that process, if they discover you did something illegal or whatever, they have a right to go file what's called a suspicious activity report with the federal government. In this case, I've never even seen the suspicious activity report that started this investigation. I've requested it for years and years. Federal government won't turn it over. They know it's all fake and a lie, and hoping that this matter will go away. But the civil recourse is the method that one would take to recoup a financial obligation. It's not a criminal matter.
PNC Bank, in the course of providing financing for the fiber optics ring for Butler County, admitted, especially by email, to improprieties within their own documents for that lease relationship with Butler County. And it seems as though PNC knew in advance that their documents with Butler County were not legally consistent with what they should have been. What do you say about that?
The bank knew that they had made a mistake. While I was sitting in prison, I discovered FBI documents, because I'm still fighting for true discovery, stuff that wasn't made known to me prior to trial. After trial, I'm sitting in prison. I receive a batch of FBI documents where bank officials had told the FBI that they created unusual documents. Their documentation was not adequate, and it's clear that the government knew this loan never existed, that it had no merit, and essentially the bank was trying to cover up a mistake. Well, to cover up that mistake, they went so far as to separate me from my family. And it'll be a cold day in hell before they realize that they chose the wrong one in terms of taking me from my family, because that's something I love more than anything in the world. So this matter is not going away.
Orlando, let me summarize this point, and then we'll move on to a related topic. PNC Bank had a relationship with Butler County while your company was a vendor of products and services for PNC Bank. PNC Bank was buying products and services, which it then intended to lease to Butler County. In the normal course of business, PNC sent $4 million to your company. You used this funding to advance the project. Notably, your company never authorized corporate resolutions which obligated you to a $4 million loan or as a guarantor for a third-party financial transaction. Anything that James Smith signed had no legal significance to you or your company under federal or state law. Significantly, and the FBI and DOJ confirmed that your company did not authorize any form of financial liability for any third-party debts, the federal government would have known you were innocent. The federal government would have realized there was no commission of a crime. Is that a succinct and correct summation?
Certainly there was no crime. Make sure we're clear on some of the facts. I have not seen any certified documents regarding anything James Smith has signed to obligate my company. So I can't attest to whether or not he signed something or anything like that that obligated my company. Now, if the government is making that claim, that's them. I don't support that. I don't support that my company or any person in my company ever signed a loan guarantee. They could not have. Smith could not have signed a loan guarantee when there was no loan existed. So that theory or line of reasoning is flawed. So until they produce that, the issue of whether Smith signed something is irrelevant. The matter here is I was accused of having a $4 million loan that I didn't put on my financial statements. I want to be very clear on that point because that is the matter in the heart of the case. And had they gone and verified that there was no loan, then there would be no conversation regarding Smith. There would be no conversation regarding Verbruggen or anybody else in my company. If they had just gone and done their job, there would have been no crime and innocent people would not have been sent to prison.
Orlando, we have from the Executive Office of the United States Attorneys a confirmation of a FOIA request, a response to a FOIA request, that there are no records that support the shredding of the $4 million loan. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's just asinine that we're even having a conversation around the shredding of documents by government officials. It's a flat-out lie that they would claim they shredded the documents when they know the documents never existed. So all they're doing is complicating a matter by making such an allegation in the first place. And then secondly, for them to now come forward and say there's no evidence, any shredding of documents, it's just a continuous cycle in which they want to just do whatever they have to do to keep a conviction. So words are beyond me with these people in terms of their integrity and them doing the right thing. I think it's just going to take, falling on the right ears or rise up of people in the public to hear about how our officials do that. We paid them their salaries via tax dollars. And yet they can just behave and lie and do whatever they want to do and expect life to go on. Again, words are beyond me, to even be having this conversation about how our public officials are acting or the way they should act with honesty, integrity at all times. In this case, the particular people involved with my case, they're not acting this way. And I hope this falls on the ears of Merrick Garland himself to come in and look at this matter, and I'll be happy to meet with him, President Biden or Trump or whoever else that wants to get to the bottom of truth, because what they're doing to me and have done and robbed me 15 years of my life, they can do to someone else with the simple stroke of a pen and never be held accountable. This has just got to stop.
Orlando, thank you for coming on to the Where Are the Heroes podcast series. We appreciate you sharing your insight about your tragic experience. I want to close with an observation. In the prior episode, I explained that I would be sending a letter to the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys. I received a response to that letter, and it was dated May 2022. Now, I received this as of September 2024. The response to my FOIA request asking for proof of the shredding of the alleged $4 million loan was issued over 2 years ago, and I received it just this month. Even after repeated emails and letters to the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys, it took 2.5 years for that letter to arrive. The response was revealing. The Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys answered my FOIA by saying that there were no records indicating the shredding of the alleged $4 million loan. This conclusively proves that Benjamin Glassman, former U.S. Attorney, and current U.S. Attorney Kenneth Parker lied that the DOJ shredded evidence that did not exist. This can only mean that the DOJ prosecuted Orlando Carter based upon a lie, based upon a representation by PNC Bank that a $4 million loan actually existed. This cannot and should not happen to anybody in the United States of America. Thank you for listening, and until next time, may truth reign supreme.
Are you looking for a quality gift for that special someone? Visit JamesBowersJohnson.com and buy the classic to be Why Does the Moon Chase the Sun? This book reveals the very first battle between good and evil. When you learn why the moon chases the sun, you will be saddened and inspired at the same time. Buy this ebook today and read it with your children and grandchildren. They will be spellbound. And don't forget, Yes to Hell With receives all proceeds. Thank you for your support. YesToHellWith.com, and may truth reign supreme. SEDM.org, Sovereignty, Education, and Defense Ministry, is a website that every patriot in America must join. SEDM.org will change your life perspective and liberate you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Visit SEDM.org today and join for free.